February 4th, 2016. Bangladesh Central Bank is closing, and a single word drops into the system: foundation. This word saved approximately $870 million. But before that, $81 million had already vanished. This is a bank robbery, but no one entered the vault. No guns, no masks, no getaway car. Just a screen, a few lines of text, and one key: enter. While no one at Bangladesh Central Bank was at a computer, a screen at the New York Fed was flashing with money transfer instructions totaling $951 million. The officer looks at the screen. Sender, Bangladesh Central Bank. Message, in Swift format. Correct signature, correct codes. The system marks these instructions as trusted. But the instructions that appeared on that screen had not actually come from Bangladesh. And while all this was happening, in Bangladesh, at the crime scene, there was only one witness: a broken printer. Actually, everything began months earlier, in January 2015. It all starts with an ordinary-looking email. Dhaka, a tired bank employee, morning shift, cold coffee, an overflowing inbox. An ordinary email catches their eye. Job application. Could you review my CV in the attachment? The email looks perfectly normal. There's a resume file attached. They click. At that moment, the door opens. Nothing happens on the screen, but something awakens in the background. Malicious software has infiltrated Bangladesh Central Bank's network. It spreads silently. It records keystrokes. Who connects, when, with which username, to which Swift terminal. It notes everything. And the attacker doesn't rush. Not one day, not 1 week. For 14 months, they only watch. They learn system habits, log in, log out times, who has authorization. What they're looking for, not just usernames and passwords, but behavioral patterns. Their goal isn't to directly breach the New York Fed, it's to find the weakest link connected to that fortress. Bangladesh Central Bank manages billions of dollars in reserves, but its infrastructure is fragile. Old network equipment, a system without proper firewalls, and a Swift terminal that, instead of being an isolated security island, is connected to the ordinary office network. On paper, one of the world's most secure money accounts. In reality, sitting behind second-hand cheap routers. The attackers have found the weak point they were looking for. They also turn timing to their advantage. Thursday evening, Bangladesh enters a holiday. Friday, New York is open, but Dhaka cannot be reached. By Monday, the country where the money is headed, the Philippines, is closed due to Chinese New Year. While the money circulates through the system, everyone is closed in turn. No one can call anyone at the critical moment. The calendar reaches that day, the night of February 4th, 2016. In Bangladesh, the workday ends. Lights go off. Security guards patrol the corridors. No one inside the building is thinking, a country's foreign reserves are currently under attack. But in the server room, there are invisible guests. Attackers connecting from somewhere else in the world infiltrate the Swift terminal through the VPN tunnels they've established and the malware they've planted. The system thinks they are Bangladesh Central Bank's own personnel, because user credentials, login habits, all of it had been recorded for months. They don't issue a single massive instruction. That would be obvious. Instead, they break the money into pieces. They write more than 30 transfer instructions worth tens of millions of dollars each. The total reaches $951 million. Target, a small branch bank on Jupiter Street in Manila. Here, there are 4 ghost accounts opened months earlier with fake IDs. Also, in Sri Lanka, a foundation account called Shalaka Foundation that appears to be a charity. Messages begin flowing one by one to the New York Fed via Swift. Meanwhile, in Dhaka, the printer in the Swift room sits silently on the wall. The procedure is simple. Whatever transactions were made at night, they're printed out in the morning. The officer takes the list, reviews it. If something looks strange, it gets noticed there. The attackers have accounted for this too. The malware they planted, called evtdiag.exe, doesn't just send the instructions, it also disrupts the printer's operation. The moment the heist begins, the only physical witness is silenced. As night progresses in New York, Fed employees begin to notice the explosion in the number of transactions coming from Bangladesh. The amounts are high, the recipients are unusual. Especially the successive transfers to a small branch bank in the Philippines catch some employees' attention. This is a bit aggressive, they think. An investigation is initiated, but in banking, no procedure operates with a single keystroke. Forms are opened, approval authorities are engaged, control mechanisms operate in sequence. Meanwhile, time continues to flow in the attacker's favor. Before the investigation fully kicks in, 5 transactions are approved. 4 go to RCBC's Jupiter Street branch in the Philippines, a total of $81 million. 1 goes to Shalaka Foundation in Sri Lanka, $20 million. Thus, a total of $101 million officially leaves Bangladesh's account. Of this amount, $20 million, the transfer going to Shalaka Foundation in Sri Lanka, that transaction will soon be stopped and the money returned. The part that actually vanished and is the hardest to trace is the $81 million that went to the Philippines line. The employees in Dhaka still know nothing. When they arrive at work the next morning, the only oddity they see is that the printer isn't working. No paper is coming out. There's an error on the screen. They assume it's an ordinary malfunction. But that small malfunction is one of the only traces of the night when millions of dollars disappeared. In the Philippines, 4 ghost accounts opened years earlier suddenly come alive. While they previously held balances of $500, within a few days, tens of millions of dollars enter the accounts. The money is gathered into a single account, transferred to a foreign exchange company, converted to pesos, and sent to the doors of Manila's big casinos. Inside, chips are purchased, games are played, and winnings become gambling income, clean money. At that time, Philippine casinos were outside anti-money laundering laws. No one was required to ask, where did this money come from? So how was $870 million saved? The answer lies in the Sri Lanka line. At the intermediary bank, Deutsche Bank, a clerk looks at one of the instructions on the screen. $20 million going to a foundation called Shalaka Foundation. Their eyes catch it. The word is wrong. Foundation, not foundation. A single letter, N, instead of D. Normally, a mistake small enough to be overlooked, but this time it isn't. They check the bank records in Sri Lanka. Shalaka Foundation exists, Foundation doesn't. The ID and registration numbers don't match.
Sending $20 million to a misspelled foundation that no one recognizes doesn't make sense. The transaction is frozen. Contact is made with Bangladesh. Officials in Dhaka say they never issued such an instruction. This small suspicion triggers a much larger inquiry at the New York Fed. Based on the order flagged for the same spelling error, all other transfers are re-examined, and most of the remaining instructions are blocked. Thus, approximately $850 million is stopped before ever leaving the system. The stolen money remains at $81 million. The rest of the plan collapses because of a single word, foundation. The hackers wrote nearly flawless code, but they couldn't write flawless English. So who was behind this attack? When cybersecurity firms began examining the malicious code found at Bangladesh Bank, they see familiar traces among the lines. Fragments that overlapped with certain components used previously in the Sony Pictures attack and in the WannaCry ransomware. The same name keeps coming to the table: North Korea, the Lazarus Group. According to multiple intelligence reports, a state-sponsored cyber attack team linked to North Korea. So here, we're not facing just a clever hacker. Most likely, it's a regime itself. Pyongyang is under international sanctions. It has almost no normal channels to earn foreign currency. The nuclear program devours money. The equation becomes simple. If traditional trade doesn't work, the next step is digital robbery. Target: banks. In Bangladesh, the scandal erupts. The central bank governor resigns. In the Philippines, RCBC's Jupiter branch manager is convicted of money laundering. Sentence: 32 to 56 years in prison. I was just a pawn. The real players escaped, she says. Perhaps she's right. A casino operator returns $15 million. I was just an intermediary, he says. Some charges are dropped. SWIFT tightens security standards. Banks restructure their networks. On paper, many things are fixed. But the real mark this story leaves isn't on paper. It's in minds. Targeted, $951 million. Approximately $850 million was saved without ever leaving the system. $81 million remained. A significant portion of that is still lost. Where at least $66 million is today is not fully known. Because this incident shows a very clear truth. The money that makes the world turn is entrusted not so much to concrete vaults as to fragile systems and careless fingers. An email attachment can smuggle $81 million out. A single typo can keep $870 million inside. This time, Foundation was written and the plan collapsed. But Lazarus is still out there. Smarter, more experienced, more careful. And next time, they'll spell that word correctly. Who is the next target? Which bank? Which country? Perhaps your bank. Systems can be updated. Firewalls can be raised. Protocols can be tightened. The one thing that doesn't change is the human pressing that enter key. The most secure system is only as fragile as the most careless finger.